announcements. Okay. Get the swig in me, matey. Hello, everybody. We have some announcements today before we get started that I wanted to give out before we start this. What I hope to, and not hope, what I know is going to be a great bounce back from the long hiatus that's been taking place in the podcast. Due to just long periods of thinking, I have come about upon myself, along with talking with my gonna be an assistant of sorts, the Jamie to my Joe Rogan, per se. Molly Riordan, who has been you've probably been the most frequent guest on the show so far.
I think so.
Yeah. So I think you're now about to become like a permanent part in the in the show, because she's gonna be helping out with just helping me out with shit. She's gonna be here both emotionally and physically. She's gonna be running the if I'm in a discussion with a guest per se, like the guest we're about to have on now, who's actually, we're gonna get into that in a minute, but it's actually her brother-in-law, so way better episode to have her on. I say as she drinks nervously in the corner. But there's an awkward pause that can sometimes happen when we're caught in that moment where I have to look something up, and this is going to alleviate that. We're going to be able to all, and then we're going to have we're gonna have a good time. It's going to be fucking awesome. Bringing more people on is just, it's bringing the vibe. I am talking on my ass at this point, but what I'm saying is that I'm really glad to have Molly on. It's going to be fucking awesome. Great addition.
Over here that say you're doing great, hold them up for emotional support.
Good job.
Sorry.
Don't put that in the camera. Don't edit that part. Cut that out. No. Besides that, and you're gonna see all this coming up. Besides that, we have Patreon, as always. You can give as little as, I don't even know, however little of an amount you want to give to the podcast, or as large of an amount. We promote for large amounts here, the McAllister Hours. Go big or go home, as we say. Yeah, so please do that. That always helps us out. And I keep saying apparently, but whatever.
People don't notice it though.
People don't really, yeah, I think that's
unless you're in a professional setting, people don't notice it.
Yeah, which nothing's fucking professional anymore these days, right?
Yeah.
It's all bullshit. All right. Our guest today is David.
Mwirichia.
David Mwirichia. I am the worst fucking host. I can never pronounce my guest names right the whole time.
It's spelled weird.
David Mwirichia, right?
Foreign, yes.
Yeah. He is Molly, our new assistant's brother-in-law, and besides the fact that he's just related, he's just a very interesting individual. He has a very interesting background. We're going to get into all that, but this is a great comeback for the podcast, so this is going to be an awesome episode. You guys are not going to want to miss out on this. So, without further ado, here's the episode. Hello, everybody. You are watching listening to the McAllister Hours. I am your host, Colin McAllister. And like I said in the announcements previously, we are joined today by David Mwirichia. Fuck, I totally fucked that up. God damn it. What is it? Mwirichia. Okay, alright. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Like we were just, I was just telling you before, I'm a little out of practice for the podcast. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a weird 3 weeks of mishaps and weird happenings. But yeah, so how we know each other is I'm currently dating your sister-in-law.
Correct.
And she told me a little bit about you before we even met, and just kind of like your background. So you were born in Kenya, is that correct?
Yes, I was born in Kenya.
Yeah, and so she pressed upon that in the fact that you is it correct that I say that you identify as an atheist?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so maybe I'm a little stereotypical or sorts, but I thought that combination was very interesting. And after meeting you the first time, I think you're a very interesting character. So I was like, I gotta get this guy on the podcast. So
Yeah, sure. I'll just go ahead and give you a little of my background.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I was born in Kenya. I came to the United States in 2001.
Okay.
When I was about 8 years old, just about to turn 9. And actually, my first big event in America, I actually remember is starting school, and then about 2 weeks into school, September 11th happened, and so that was kind of a just big welcome to America moment. And I didn't really understand patriotism and all these things as far as their American version, but that was kind of my big introduction to this country. But yeah, so I grew up here in Des Moines. I went to school with Molly, met her sister in high school, went to Iowa State together, and so but yeah, so I mean, I just definitely got married 2 years ago, and actually went back to Kenya for the first time.
Oh wow!
2001, and so yeah, when you've not been somewhere for 17 years, it definitely changes how you see it, especially seeing something from a kid's perspective to going back there.
Yeah.
The country's changed a lot, and so something that you did mention, just about atheism and being Kenyan. It's something that you don't see too often.
Yeah.
I mean, as anything, it's you'll find that more prominent in younger people. But Kenya, I think it's 90% Protestant. I grew up in the church. My dad, he was a businessman in Kenya. Always donated things to the church. New Year's, we'd spend all day at church. I'm talking from 9 in the morning all the way through the New Year till breakfast the next day. You just at church. And so that was a big part of my upbringing. And yeah, so right now, I'm just hiding out there, buddy, throughout this whole pandemic, and everything else is going on in the country. Getting ready to move to Illinois, hopefully study law there at Northern Illinois, and just trying to make it like everybody else, man.
Fuck. So many questions. Is it like I just have so much spinning through my head? Let's go. So let's just go back to like what you remember, what you first remember Kenya to be. Why don't you get into that a little bit?
School in Kenya is very different than
I can imagine
than school in the United States. I always tell people, I didn't really know that I was black until I came to the United States, just because. It's not something you think of, when you're in Kenya. But yeah, I mean, just the way you're taught, very gotta be very respectful to teachers, things like that. Students could talk back to teachers again until I came over here. But yeah, some of my biggest memories are just being part of school. We had there was a semi-open campus concept essentially. So we have primary school in Kenya, which starts from essentially first grade and goes all the way through 8th grade, and so you have all first graders through 8th graders. So not a combination of like elementary school,
okay,
and middle school in there together. They have this ranking system that they use for students, and so pretty much you're being ranked the whole time, because universities in Kenya, they're all essentially merit based, unless you know somebody in government. But for most people, it's essentially merit based. And so so going through school, just really focusing on getting the best grades as possible. But also it was very how do I say? Just talking about some of the other differences, things that I remember from Kenya. If you were disrespectful or if you forgot something, teachers were free, to punish you with their own discretion. I mean, there was no standard policy. That's been rescinded a little bit by the government now.
Okay.
But I remember we used to have our call it principal sticks, because he'd always have a stick, and I mean something as little as because we wore uniforms as well. And so something as little as not having your socks pulled up all the way, he'll just come up behind you, get a nice little whack on your calves, and so so students would either start running or, but yeah, I mean, so most of my memories in Kenya are just affiliated with being in school. I was there essentially until third grade. I kind of said ticked third grade twice because there the calendar runs from the school calendar from January to December. Since we don't really have a summer.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But so I came to the United States. So, I mean, I had already done third grade up until I think almost May. And then I stopped school for a while. I came back here and then just pick it back up in August. And so that was a little interesting.
Yeah, it's a change.
Yeah,
definitely. So there's always kind of the stereotype I think that goes into the African countries, like the lower socioeconomic climate. How was that for you?
So
growing up.
So growing up, my parents were very, very, very middle class. And so
in Kenya they were?
Yes,
okay.
In Kenya. Yeah, and so my dad, he actually owned a pesticide company that he ran. And my mom, she had a store that she ran kind of downtown Nairobi area. And so growing up, I mean, we didn't really feel I understood that there was poverty in the country. But the different socioeconomic statuses in Kenya, they're really differentiated kind of by where you are. And so if you're going to school in Nairobi, I mean, you're going to school with all the other students who are kind of the same socioeconomic background, so you don't see that too much.
Okay.
But I mean, whenever I did go to my dad's home, that would be kind of, like the countryside, or we just call it, the village, just because there's not, I mean, that's where you really see, kids who essentially just live in mud huts and things like that. But when we were in Nairobi, I mean, we had a four bedroom house in a pretty good neighborhood. We had also in Kenya, labor is very, if you have any kind of money, labor is very readily available. And so we grew up always having a maid in the house. She would stay with us 5 or 6 days a week, and then kind of go home on the weekends. We always had a driver who would take us to and from school.
Oh, wow.
Just because our parents didn't,
They were just busy, or?
Yeah, also, dropping your kids off at school is not really a big deal.
Oh,
there,
okay.
So it's kind of just go to school,
you're on your own.
Yeah,
fuck off.
And actually, so we lived across the street from the current president. He's passed away recently. Well, at the time, the current president, his name was Moi. We lived across the street from his, I think they were his nieces or nephews, something like that.
So wait, the president of Kenya?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this was a good neighborhood in Nairobi, and I remember the first. This was probably like 97, 98, and he got what was it? Oh, he got a Nintendo, and so I remember just being there all the time, just playing Mario, and it's because he was the first one to get to get a Nintendo, and so that was like a huge deal, and so we'd spend a lot of time over there. But one thing I'll say is going back in 2018, that really changed my perspective. A lot of things are fairly similar. I mean, so when I went there first in Nairobi, we stayed with my aunt and uncle. They're both doctors, and they specialize in vitro fertilization. That they had one of the first in vitro clinics.
Oh, wow!
Yeah, and so they do very well. They live in nice gated community. But just driving around Nairobi, one thing you really do realize is there's no social safety net. And so what happens is, well, let me say that again. There's no national social safety net. So essentially, anything kind of like big government programs, like things like food stamps, things like that, those aren't really present over there. And something else is the Like, I mean, if you're homeless, there's not a lot of help. And so one thing you do see a lot is you'll see homeless children in Kenya, which is something that you never think of seeing. In the United States, with I forget the name of the department.
Yeah, the Department of Human Services, right?
Yeah. DHS and family services, all these things. And so you really do get to kind of see that dynamic play out.
So would you say you have more of like almost an appreciation for like the fact that those things are here?
Definitely. Just because there's, you obviously feel bad, but there's also very little that you can do. My aunt and her family, they're fairly generous, but again, it's it's a country of almost 50 million people, and so there's not too much that they can do per se. But again, I mean, just that social stratification between you go from Nairobi and on our way to our honeymoon, we stayed somewhere called Mombasa, which is it's a coastal city, second biggest city in Kenya. But there again, we're at this nice all expenses paid resort.
Wow.
But there's you go out a couple blocks over, and the people who work at the other resort, you see how they live.
Oh yeah, that's like the concept that I've heard about those countries is like the divide between the higher upper middle class is like so like such a steep drop.
Yeah, it's blatant. I mean, here essentially, I mean, you can be technically impoverished according to what X number of dollars you make per year, but you still have house, air conditioning, you probably have a car, fridge, phone. There not a lot of you don't see a lot of poor people who do have safe, comfortable housing. Very rare that they'll own a car. But one thing that's huge in Kenya that kind of surprised me, everybody has a cell phone. Every single. I'm talking about the guy who's selling just stuff on the street. And one thing that's huge in Kenya is mobile payments.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So almost nobody carries cash, and they have this app. It's called M-Pesa. So in Kenya, pesa essentially just means money. And so everyone uses it. I'm talking about so you go from the mall. Where that's the standard, and then you're out just in the village, middle of nowhere. Somebody pulls out a phone, and that's how the transactions happen. So that was a huge thing. Debit cards are not very prominent, just because everything is on your phone.
Wow, that's really bizarre. Like, you have that stereotype of that country, and then it seems like their mobile transactions are almost higher advanced than we, I still use cash and debit cards. Times.
And I mean, another big thing is, so they have two big phone companies, but data there is so cheap. I mean, so you can get a 1 gig for essentially $1. And so I mean,
damn.
So I don't know. I mean, like I have me and my wife, we split 4 gigs. We pay like $30 for $40 for it. But there, I mean, just 1 gig data essentially costs $1 or less. And so it's just it's crazy how just everybody had cell phones. And I mean, it's that was one of the biggest shocking things. I mean, here, mobile payments, I mean, you have like Apple Pay, Google Pay. I don't think anybody really uses that.
It's a transitional period, definitely. All this stuff over the last decade. So like, how does the government work over? Like, is it like, I'm sure it's I have my preconceived notions about what it might be, but
we have a government. I'll say that. And again, it really depends on who you're asking, who you're talking to. One thing that I like there, I mean, so the government has this kind of hands-off approach that they try to look good but not do too much. So I mean, I think things would be a better question for my parents, but definitely, I mean, one thing that you do understand is corruption's a big deal in Kenya, and we're always ranked up there, the most corrupt countries. But I mean, I think that is something that you'll find very prevalent with developing countries, just because you have so many people just trying. You want to do good, but the incentive to do good kind of has diminishing returns over time. So the more that you're trying, to do to people, do good for people, the more people are trying to kind of take advantage of that. And so you just like, you know what? If everybody's trying to get their own piece, I'm going to try and do the same thing as well.
Yeah.
But so I mean, the government. I mean, it's a parliamentary system. We do have a president. The one thing with Kenyan politics as well is it's a very tribal. I mean, I know you hear that term thrown around here all the time. It's tribal, Democrats, Republicans. But there, it's actually tribal. I mean, I mean, that is because we have two of the main tribes, and they kind of the Kikuyus and the Luos, and they're kind of Europeans kind of just drawing them after Africa. They didn't really incorporate tribal homelands, barriers, and so you have these places where Kikuyu will never vote for a Luo. I mean, can't happen. Won't do it. Vice versa. And there was violence that broke out in 2006. I think that was the worst. Just a lot of people getting killed, and it was an election year, and so right now, I mean, I think it's calmed down a lot. Big Chinese influence in Kenya. Now.
That's interesting.
And I mean, just because kind of just like seeing where the world is plugged into, Kenya is a lot more closely associated with Europe, with Asia than it is the United States. I mean, I think that's kind of saying that kind of goes for all of Africa in general. And I know that the government just finished building this high-speed rail from Nairobi to Mombasa, all Chinese. Huge loan from the Chinese, but kind of just going back, to the tribalism. There's also there's no terms for presidents in Kenya.
Oh, it's just like whenever, kind of.
Yeah. So Kenya's only had 4 presidents, and I mean the first one, Jomo Kenyatta, his son is the current president now. And okay. So it's kind of like imagine,
the Bushes.
Yeah. I mean, you have your you got your Bushes essentially in Kenya, but because there's no terms, and because there's no terms, and because once you're plugged into the government, you have all these access to resources. He also just happens to be the richest man in Kenya as well. And so I mean, is it a coincidence? Maybe, but I mean, it's probably just because of his position. And so a lot of local governments are much more plugged in, as all local governments are. But I mean, Kenyans don't always see. I mean, I don't think that Kenyans have the same faith, the same belief, in their government. As Americans. I know Americans, always say that I don't trust government, but there's like, no, I don't want anything to do with the government. And but one thing that's very prevalent there as well is if you want things to happen, if you want things to change, you can definitely grease the wheels with $100. That'll get you a long way. Bribes are a big thing in the government, and that's probably where most of the corruption does stem from. This, pay to play, essentially.
Yeah, that's all very interesting. Is there like a militia presence there, really, or
no? I mean, so I'll say the military is fairly stable.
Okay.
Yeah, they always end up getting into it with it's not Boko Haram. It's there's it'll come to me while I'm talking, but it's a Somalian Islamist group, and so usually just around the coast, around the border. One thing that you do see a lot in Kenya is military presence, especially after in 1998, the U.S. embassy in Kenya was attacked, and about 300 people died there. I remember that because my mom was in that area when it actually happened, and so there's been multiple terrorist attacks in Kenya, and so if you're going to anywhere so at the resorts, there's always armed security there. If you imagine going to Mwirichia Mall, you have to walk through a metal detector, and there's 3 or 4 armed guards there with their AK-47s. and whatnot. So I mean, there's a very big military presence in Kenya. I don't think people, if you're from Kenya, you don't notice it as much, but definitely the people. So I mean, if you're visiting, there's a lot of security checkpoints at the airport, just everywhere. But that again is very closely tied to what the Islamist group in Somalia. I can't believe I'm blanking on it. Al-Shabaab. See, I told you again. Yeah, Al-Shabaab is the name of the group. And so one thing that happens in Kenya, you end up seeing a lot of discrimination against Somalian citizens or Somalian refugees who are trying to flee that violence. They come to Kenya, and then because of the discrimination, because they're essentially if you're not Christian in Kenya, you're not. So essentially, if you're not Christian, especially if you're Somalian, people kind of look at you as being possibly being connected to Al-Shabaab in some way. So especially for the young men, and so what happens is you essentially have them. You have no opportunity. You're a young guy. You just fled across your country, and you end up kind of pushing those young people back into Al-Shabaab because they essentially have nothing else to do. You don't have any options. There was a large refugee area in Kenya, kind of by the border, and as more Somalians would trickle out, anytime there's any kind of Al-Shabaab attack, usually they'll attack. Sometimes they'll attack schools. Sometimes they'll attack buses. But they have these raids that then go on. And it's essentially, the police breaking in, breaking into your house, and you either have to pay them off, and so when you're talking about armed militias, there are some, especially in that area where you would have a lot of Kenyans going and attacking Somalian refugees, kind of as revenge. Anytime there's a terrorist attack, and so. That would probably be the closest militia presence. Okay. I think of in Kenya.
So there's civil unrest in terms of the cultural clash.
Not too much, and not. It essentially only happens after there's an attack, and so I wouldn't necessarily label it as civil unrest. I would kind of say that you kind of have. Just this very clear divide, kind of like a us versus them, and it's more just like a civil tension that kind of boils over every once in a while. But most Kenyans are kind of isolated from it. But if you are Somalian, you definitely do feel that constant tension.
I see what you're saying. Well, what about like the religious presence?
Yeah. Church is everything in Kenya.
I do have. So, is it like? Does it come from America? Is that where it came from? No. Or is it rooted there? Where are the beginnings of all that?
Yeah. So, Kenya used to be a British colony.
Okay.
So that's where Christianity essentially came. And
that's hardcore Christianity too. Yeah. Those are brutal.
Yeah. And so I think this is something that applies both for Kenya, Asia, and South America. Is kind of as quote unquote Western countries. You have European bloc and the United States. They've kind of pulled away from religion. You've seen a deeper investment and a deeper focus into evangelizing these developing countries, and so a lot of social status and unfortunately money comes from being very invested and plugged in into the Christian communities. Pastors, they end up doing very well for establishing a church with a lot of support, from their European or American supporters, essentially. And so I think, and in Kenya, the government, we're a Christian country. That's kind of the motto, because everyone in the government is incentivized to say that as well. And so you do have a very and also church is both your religion, but also kind of just like it's very closely tied into your social interactions. And so church is a big deal. I don't know if you've ever been to an African church, but they go forever. I mean, man, you know, if you don't have, you know, at least 3 hours blocked off,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. But again, and some of that stems from back when Kenya was a British colony. Is, you know, people would work essentially 6 days a week, and church is the only time that you can get to, you know, unwind and interact with people, and so that's why it's so closely tied to those social bonds that really established in church, and so that's kind of the history behind it, and also that kind of drives a lot of the whole. You'll see a lot of countries have very strong, especially African countries, very strong anti-LGBT.
That's huge.
Agendas, and I mean, you have politicians, you know, campaigning on, you know, making it illegal, jailing anyone who's caught. You know, there's still an LGBTQ community, but it's very. You know, it's kind of very hidden, and
they're probably in the closet.
Yeah. Because, you know, if you're out, then it's illegal.
Yeah,
and you know, you might die, you might lose your job. You know, there's no protections.
It's sad
for them. So yeah. I mean, and again, I think a lot of that ties back into the church, where you see a lot of. You know, pretty much in the West, it's kind of just like a given. You know, you essentially can't be a church and say, you know, we don't want any gay people, because then you know you're gonna lose a lot of support that way. But if you do feel that way, you'll find a lot of supporters. You know, if you go to, say, Africa or Asia or Central America as well, just because it's much easier to. You know, if the community's kind of hidden, if you don't really know anyone, that way you can kind of preach that, you know, this whole evil thing. But I mean, if you know somebody who's, you know, who's part of that community and they're a great person, then it's harder to kind of demonize them. And,
yeah. That's kind of, I mean, just me personally growing up in a small town and, you know, not really meeting anyone that was declaring themselves as a homosexual until like I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe not on that scale, but I can definitely kind of understand that.
Yeah.
Is there like a role, like from the gut, like because there are some countries where like you can actually be killed for being atheist and be like, or jailed or whatever. Is that the case in Kenya?
No. So I mean, being an atheist is not illegal.
Okay.
Or anything like that. But I mean, you do lose a lot of
social status.
Yeah,
sure.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not something that's really talked about or discussed very much, just because it's kind of like, you know, why are you trying to cause problems? Why are you trying to you know, interfere with, you know, what's going on? Like, you know, so you're kind of more seen as a troublemaker, and you know, and especially if you have any influence with other people, then more people will kind of, you know, be angry with you, just because they think that you might influence, you know, their children or your friends. So it's not so it's not really, you know, illegal or anything per se, but the social costs of being public with it are pretty high. I know that I always get in trouble whenever, because pastors are are seen in a very high regard in Kenya, and so we even have a Kenyan pastor here. He runs a church in West Des Moines, and a lot of Kenyans, just a lot of East Africans end up going to that church. And, you know, anytime he sees me, he's always like, you know, why aren't you at church? And it's like, I'm sorry, it's this far away. He's like, no, you know, you can come. There's people who drive from further away, and it's like, you know, so it's very awkward. And I've never had that conversation with him where I'm just like, I'm not a Christian or anything like that. Just because if I say that I know where it's gonna end, he's gonna, you know, call my parents, and it's gonna be a whole church thing. Because kind of essentially what happens is they have an intervention with you. Jesus Christ. If you do that, so it's much better. Just, I mean, it's easier to kind of just like make excuses than to actually deal with the repercussions of having everyone just like, oh, did you hear that, you know this person or this person's son said this, and it's just like, oh god, like, yeah, let's just avoid that and just say like, I'll be there next week.
Yeah, there's like a cultural blindness almost that happens when you're like doing those kind of people. I'm noticing something is up with the camera. I don't know what the fuck's going on. So I think we are going to take a quick break here and then we come right back to it. So,
Okay.
All right, let's do that. Yeah, all right, let's go back into everything you just... No, we have the audio, as you can see. So we were talking about religion and all that, and then we kind of just halted. So how did that translate, like, into your life moving into America?
Yeah.
Like, were you still religious for a while? How'd that all...
Oh yeah, I mean, I was very religious growing up. I always make fun of my wife, tell her I was the VBS champion like 2 years in a row, just memorizing all kinds, passages and whatnot. But yeah, and so when I came to the United States, church was a very big part of just my upbringing here. Because whenever you leave a country, the first thing you want to do is look for a community. And actually, the church right down the street from where Molly lives, First Assembly, big church. They had a very big African community there, and essentially, so this pastor who I'm always ducking, he was a pastor at the time there, and so we kind of had our own service. By our own, I mean kind of it was just where all people from from an African background would go, just because it really helps both replicate that sense of community and just helps you connect. But after, I mean, we started getting more involved with the more the general service. I'll put it in those terms. And so growing up, church on Sunday, Wednesdays, we'd always have youth group, and so that was a big thing for me. All both through middle school.
I mean to interrupt. Is that just? I remember when I grew up Catholic. I didn't grow up Protestant,
Gotcha.
but I grew up like in a Protestant community essentially, and like it was always Wednesday. Is that just like everywhere? It's just Wednesday for every Protestant church.
It was for us too.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think so.
They all just decide in the middle of the week. You know what we need? We need some fucking church, man.
Yeah, and I mean, I liked it because you go there with a bunch of young people. You're all like mostly in high school. Good chance to talk to girls.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was probably the biggest reason that we'd go there. I mean, that's how I brought most of my friends. I'm like, oh yeah, there's some cute girls. But essentially, but I mean, it was it was good people, it was good community. I really enjoyed it. We had a good pastor. But that church was kind of plagued with a couple of, sex scandals.
Ooh.
And so that's kind of one thing that pushed us away from that church per se.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of had me just, re-examine Christianity just from a different perspective. My sister, she's like the first person who was kind of just like, I'm done with religion. And her and I would have these huge sparring sessions when she was in college. Just going back and forth ideas, and I mean, I'm sure you've heard all the arguments.
Yeah.
From what's like used to argue, that everything is just random and created itself, or so now you believe, you have faith in the Big Bang, and so I really didn't start re-examining my religion until probably my sophomore year in college. Just thinking about and just really asking yourself. Why do you believe, what you believe?
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's a good question for anybody.
It's a very important question that not a lot of people are really willing to ask themselves. Mm-hmm. They kind of just, it's what you've kind of been describing, like what the case in Africa, or Kenya seems to be, is that it's like cultural more than anything. It's like kind of impressed and expected on you to like be this certain way.
Yeah, so. Yeah. And for me, it's kind of just like, the biggest determiner of, I'll say the biggest factor in what your religion is going to be growing up is just your geography. So if you're born in if you're born in India, you're probably going to be a Hindu. If you're born if you're born in Iran or Iraq, you're going to be probably going to be a Muslim. And so you're just thinking about how all these beliefs come up. I mean, a lot of it to me was just kind of it's just random. I mean, you believe what you believe because the people who raised you believe, and so you have this kind of just like infinite regression to where when did the first Kenyan become Christian? And he probably somebody who was colonized by the British, or even in China. I mean, they're I mean, if you're born there, you're probably gonna be non-religiously affiliated, just because you were born there. And so my biggest thing was just the whole deterministic and kind of just like fatalistic mindset where if you don't believe these things, you are gonna either go to hell or you won't be welcome. And but then attributing that to it's just but then you juxtapose that to the fact that you didn't really, I don't remember him choosing to be a Christian or any of my friends choosing to be a Muslim or a Hindu. Just this is what we are now.
Yeah, it's been impressed upon you that this is just how you're going to live.
Yeah. And so I mean, I kind of look at it. I'll always make fun of my friend who's who's a Bears fan. I'm just like, you're a Bears fan. It's not your fault. Now you got to be miserable. But I mean, kind of the same thing. You don't really, you grow up with it, right? And it's hard to push back against something that against your family, against your whole social circle when you're 10, 15. I mean, even if you're there's people who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s who are just starting to question their faith, but then when you're so ingrained in that community, you have to weigh the costs of kind of just doing your own thing versus or questioning your beliefs versus losing everyone.
Exactly. Like, is it worth going through all that shit just to say, hey, I don't agree? You could say that, you could apply that to like today's politics too. Like, there's such a divide. I don't know that I need to get into that, but it's kind of, in a way, it's almost similar. Like, there's almost a religious ideology that's coming to politics. It's
I mean, it's definitely an ideology, right? Because you grow up in. I mean, if you grow up in a conservative household, you're going to be exposed to a lot more conservative media outlets, just a whole conservative way of thinking, and so that's kind of going to be the lens in which you kind of view everything, and so when you do ask somebody to question their beliefs, they're kind of already equipped with all the counters, both for politics and I think religion works in a very similar a sense, or maybe in a deeper sense, just because if you change a political party, I mean the cost of that is not no damnation and but I mean for Christianity or for other faiths, then that essentially is am I going to be damned forever for not believing what I was taught? And so but yeah, I mean I like your example with politics. I mean, no one's you don't wake up and want okay, these are my beliefs now. I totally get that. I mean, these things happen over time, essentially.
Yeah, and that's when it comes to religion or politics or anything, that's like one of the most difficult things is like you always have to remember that the reason somebody thinks and reasons a certain way is because of their experiences. Mm-hmm. You can't really take that away from someone.
Yeah,
it's a really difficult thing to like think about.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go for it.
So kind of talk to me about your kind of spiritual journey per se.
My spiritual journey, my non-spiritual journey. Well, I'm an atheist. So I grew up pretty hardcore. Well, it's actually really interesting. So when I was like just born, my parents actually weren't really that religious. And then like kind of around, I want to say, I could be misremembering, but like when I was around like 4 or 5, my parents just started like kind of going back into church. They kind of just got into it. I think my dad kind of being more political had something to do with that as well. And then my mom just kind of got really conservative, really uptight with it. There was probably a good period in my life where I really did believe in God and everything that was associated with that. I would say probably around 15, 16 is when I really started to question things. Things just didn't add up. There was a lot of, when you grow up Catholic, it's very, it's very strict, very like, no questions asked. This is kind of just how it is. And me being a, thinking person, I didn't like that at all. I would say the biggest deterrent from a religion was I was, being Catholic and growing up in the Protestant dominant neighborhood and town and all that. I was thinking about maybe joining the Protestant church, the Protestant Reformed Church, and they told me that if I did that and I did not get confirmed Catholic, because that was kind of the decision, as I was being forced into Catholicism, getting confirmed into Catholicism when I was like 17, and they were like, we're not going to pay for your education or like any of that if you don't. They use that threat, and then that really got me thinking, like, you know, the whole purpose of religion is to believe something and to like formulate everything around it. And I'm obviously not able to do this right now. So and then I think over the years, I think I would probably say when I was 19, 20, you know, in college, just dropping out of college is when I really would just affirm myself as like, yeah, I'm an atheist. Like, and you know, I don't know about for you personally, but I think there's always a period of agnosticism kind of in between that too. You have like that year or two where you're like, you know, I'm not really sure. I might still believe it, but I really hate all the bullshit that's going on, so I'm just gonna lay low. I don't know. Like, would you say you're a firm atheist or?
So I mean, I don't know. And this is like the most like millennial answers. Like, I don't want to put a label on it. But I mean, so I mean, one thing I'm sure of is I'm definitely not a Christian. And I say that, but I mean, I'm not trying to say that, you know, if there's anything wrong with Christianity or anything wrong with any kind of religion, because as I was going through, you know, this whole questioning phase in college, I was with my wife, or like my girlfriend at the time, and she's very, very religious, and so does
she continue to be religious?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, and so we had some of our worst like fights going through this, because you know, you stepping away from I mean, I'd almost say it's similar to kind of what you went through with your parents, because with you stepping away from religion, it's not just stepping away, you know, from that faith, it's stepping away from that, you know, that's a very big part of their lives.
Exactly.
And so they feel like, you know, you're taking something away from them.
It's almost like you're shitting on part of your relationship.
Yeah. You're rejecting, you know, that whole part of it.
Exactly.
And so that was a strain. And I mean, I think for me, what I realized is just because it's not a big part of my life doesn't mean that it's not still important. And, you know, I have no issues with Christians or any person of faith. My biggest thing is, you know, just, you know, I don't care what you believe in, just don't be an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, you'll find atheists who are just like the biggest.
Oh, 110%.
Yeah.
I was just talking with Molly about this a couple days ago, and it's like the people that make you look like an asshole.
Yeah.
It's the people who are like going up to Grandma Sue, who's like, or, you know, like some 60-year-old lady who never heard a fly and is just chilling, and she says she believes in God, and you go like rip her a new asshole.
No, God is dead. You know, Jesus was, you know, blah blah blah, and then, you know, you hear something bad about the Catholic Church, like, this is who you're supporting. You know, so, you know, it's like, no, that's not really, you know, a part of them. But I think for me, essentially, is, you know, just going through the whole process, realizing that even though it's not what I believe, it's not my faith, it's still very important to my wife. And so, I mean, I still go to church sometimes.
Okay.
I even encourage her to go to church more often than she encourages me, because I'm just like, you're not going to church in a while, you know, you should
do all right?
go. Yeah. And I mean, we're in a couple of churches in Ankeny, and that's my main thing, you know. And I can still tell that, you know, it's important to her. So if it's important to her, it's important to me, even though it's not what I believe. And so. Again, I mean, I don't disagree with a lot of the teachings in Christianity. I mean, I think the biggest thing religion just teaches you just to be a good person, you know, because, I mean, if we start debating, you know, who came first, you know, you have Jesus on one side, you have Muhammad on the other side, you have Hinduism that, like, you know, a million gods, you know, throw in some Zeus and some.
You got the sun.
Yeah. I mean, you got the Egyptians. I mean, they built the pyramids. And so I mean, the whole concept of God. I mean, I think that's something that you will find in any community. I mean, it just depends how that's, you know, kind of packaged and delivered. But I mean, just the whole concept of a higher being. And that being so ever present just between humans in general, you know, whether or not you're, you know, in the rainforest, the desert, you know, not Antarctica, there's nobody there, but like, you know,
not very many.
You know, I mean, in like way northern Canada, where everything's frozen. I mean, you still have, you know, that same connection, and so my thing is not so much just rejecting the fact that that there is something that's bigger than us. It's more of just because it was packaged this way, now we have this whole story, and and when you have that many people believing the same thing, I mean, it's definitely a way to aggregate power and control over a very large segment of people.
Oh, easily. And that's kind of my always biggest argument is like, my personal thing is I don't have anything against the people who are religious. I have things against the religious institutions themselves.
Yeah.
And that even goes for like the people who run it. I mean, there are a lot of people I think that may be corrupt in those positions, but there are also plenty of people who are just like regular religious people who just truly believe that that's what they're.
There's nothing wrong with Mother Teresa. She's a great person. Well, she was a great person, I mean, you can't. Like,
Molly, you want to pull that shit up?
You can't.
I'm sorry to burst your bubble.
You guys have some shit on
she
Mother
was
Teresa? Oh, wow.
she was corrupt as fuck, man. She took a ton of money from the church.
Oh, I did not know
a ton
that.
of money. Oh, yeah.
Man, you just damn.
Jamie.
Oh wow.
Pull that shit up, Molly.
Oh my god.
Just go to Wikipedia.
Okay.
Go to Wikipedia, and there's like a whole
gosh.
there's a whole fucking section on it.
Man, I must get educated here a little bit.
Yeah.
Cause
Oh god.
So yeah. Again, like
bad example, but I know what you're saying.
No. But I mean, I actually think it's a good example because just the way that she's kind of labeled. I mean,
gives
you the perception of you can't hate on Mother Teresa. But then if you look deeper, that's when you find out that
Yeah. It's okay, so in 1991.
Let's see what you got.
Editor of the British Journal, the Lancelet, visit the home of the dying destitutes and wherever, and describe.
Doctors in hospice.
See what? Sorry.
There was like a lack of doctors in her hospice care.
Just to save money, essentially, or.
Yeah. So, like people who were dying, she kind of just didn't help them. She was kind of just like, oh, they're dying. Oh well.
So essentially, she would just pray for them. And deny them medical care.
Their soul's gonna be a lot better off,
So I'm not like
try scrolling down a little bit. There's some stuff with money that was really fucked up. Motivation for charitable activities. Helper was misleading, and only a few hundred people are served by even the largest of the homes. Oh, so all this money that went to. Well, I'm understanding all this money that went to that thing. Didn't even go to that many people. In 1998, among the 200 charitable assistant organizations reported to operate in Calcutta, Missionaries of Charity was not ranked among the largest charity organizations, with the Assembly of God charity nobly serving a greater number of the poor at 18,000 meals daily.
And so
it wasn't even that much.
Yeah, and that's what just reading the bottom where you have an Australia.
She was sometimes accused by Hindus in her adopting country trying to convert the poor to Catholicism by stealth. Christopher Hitchens, oh god, I love that guy. He described Mother Teresa's organization as a cult that promotes suffering and old, and did not help those in need. He said that Mother Teresa's own words on poverty proved that her intention was not to help people, while he quoted her words at a 1981 press conference in which she was asked, "Do you teach the poor to endure their lot?" She replied, "I think it's very beautiful to the poor to accept their lot, to share it with the passion of Christ. I think the world is being much helped by the suffering of the poor people." Holy shit.
Yeah. So let's start right there, Molly. I mean, talk about her relationship with colonialism and racism. You have a Australian feminist writing about her, saying that Mother Teresa is a quintessential image of the white women in the colonies working to save the dark bodies from their own temptations and failures, and kind of just skipping over some things. Then you have dark bodies cannot act on their own volition to stretch their own capacity, for they must. So yeah. I mean. This is all like a shock, but yeah. I mean, and
see if you can find the part with money, because we kind of glanced over it, but
really towards the end of her life, she kind of felt disconnected from God and kind of stopped believing, but she didn't tell anybody.
Wow. But again, I mean, I think that kind of goes back into the packaging of religion, of religious figures. Because that's how you end up with all these scandals. I mean, you have these people. That are looked up to, they're admired, and then you end up realizing that they're people, and people mess up, people do dumb shit.
It's like a power game almost.
Yeah, but again, when you have so much power, in a certain image, like Mother Teresa. I mean, I think her does the image of her. When you say that, it conjures an image of somebody who's out here doing all these great things. But it's still a shock to me. I'm just like, really, like, come on, like, you let me down. But I mean that kind of speaks to how when you do have organized religion, it kind of protects itself and protects its own image because it knows that you have to give out this. That they have to be perceived in a certain light.
Exactly.
In order for your message to be able to continue the way it is, essentially.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the whole thing with religion in general, and like how even the story of Jesus has come about. It's all through word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And almost like it doesn't even really matter what really happened. All that matters is that you secure a belief. Yeah. You find anything, Molly, or not really? It's kind of just...
Not really. It's all kind of just...
Well, we're not fucking Wikipedia. We're just a podcast over here. But no, like, from what I remember, it was... she was involved with... she was actually involved politically, basically, I'm pretty sure.
She was supposed to be living in poverty, and she wasn't.
She was living it up.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you have the choices, do you want to live in poverty, or do you want to, live it up, essentially? I mean... It's very tempting, especially as you're getting older. I mean, you definitely want to be more comfortable. I mean, when you wake up on a straw bed or something, for sometimes where you're just like, yeah, all right, I'm done. But yeah, so I mean, that's kind of just like how I came to believe what I believe. I mean, just kind of going back to our topic was, I'm not somebody who demonizes religion. I understand why religion, I mean, is very important to people. And even though it's not important to me, I never demonize people for their beliefs. Just don't try to shove them down my throat.
Yeah.
And we're good.
There's a difference between educating someone and like just trying to fucking shit on them.
Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah.
Well, I guess kind of staying away from religion. Or not staying away from it, going away from it for a little bit, for say. You're becoming a lawyer. Is that why here?
Yeah.
Both my parents are lawyers. Well, my father's currently a judge, So I do want to ask, like, what made you decide to go do all that?
Sure. Yeah. In college, I was convinced I wanted to be an engineer. So my dad always wanted me to be, and I just I'm not really liking it. I've always had. I really enjoy politics. I really enjoy economics. Do you want to be a poli-sci major? I'm like, what am I going to do after? I guess I can go to DC or something. But essentially, I mean, just working at Iowa State after I graduated. I worked for a scholarship program, which helped me a lot. But I think it's a very... And I've been kind of debating this because... Also, like just like being asked, what type of law I want to practice. And I mean, I especially at this time, I know there's a lot of pressure on me, to go into civil rights or to do something to be a lawyer who's gonna go out here and like serve his community. But I also feel this pressure as well. Like I don't want to be the one to kind of kind of carry that cross. Like, I mean, and because, I mean, I essentially just want to go into law, probably focus on bankruptcies. And a lot of my biggest motivation is I want to do something that can, give me a very, very stable lifestyle. And I know my wife, she wants to be a stay-at-home mom for a time, and so I mean, just finding something that's gonna enable me to do that, enable us to do that essentially. But I also just enjoy the study of law. I enjoy the practice of law. I'm reading a couple of books right now. I just finished a book by Alan Dershowitz, a very, very famous lawyer. He did the OJ case. He did.
Oh wow.
Yeah. He
which side of the OJ case was he on?
He was on the defense.
It's still interesting.
Yeah, he's always on. I mean, he's defended some pretty. I mean, Harvey. Is it Harvey? No.
Harvey Weinstein.
No. Is he the?
Did he?
Is it Harvey Weinstein?
The rapey one.
I mean, they're both rapey. Who's the other guy?
Molly, pull that up.
The one. What was his name? He had a documentary, a series on Netflix. He just hanged himself. or let's say.
Oh, David Epstein.
Oh yeah. That's his name. Yeah.
Oh, Jeffrey. Good old Jeffrey.
Jeffrey Epstein.
So that's who he defended.
Yeah. He was his lawyer. Also defended Trump in the impeachment.
Mueller?
No, Alan Dershowitz. He was on that team. And so he kind of, his whole MO is just to, his whole MO is, he believes that every person, regardless of who they are, deserves the right to counsel. He's got very rich off that. I mean, he's a very very smart lawyer. I think he defended Mike Tyson too. But yeah. So essentially, just going back to.
Sorry, try to find his net worth, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the millions. I mean, I don't think he's. But also, I mean, if he wants to hide his net worth, I think he can.
Oh, he probably could. Yeah,
definitely hide it pretty well. But yeah, I mean, so that's essentially why I
25 million. Wow.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, so that's actually why I want to study law. Is your dad looking for somebody to clerk for him next summer?
I don't know. Well, I guess it's just curious because my parents have both been they've been involved in law for a very long time. Yeah. Is there something in particular that motivated you to want to? Is it like for my father, he watched To Kill a Mockingbird, and that was what motivated him.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to put the pressure on you or anything.
No. I actually just read that book the first time.
Wow.
6 months ago, something like that. Yeah, it's a good book. Not particularly. I mean, I think it's something that interests me, and I think something that I'll be good at. Hopefully, we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I don't have this whole wake up moment where I was like, I need to go and pick up the sword and join the fight.
The pieces.
I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, because I mean, I essentially quit my other job because I was like, I want to do something different. I want to do something that I enjoy and something that pushes me. My other job, I felt that my work was meaningful, but it wasn't really pushing me. I was kind of just stuck essentially. So I'm just like, let's do something different, and took the LSAT. First time was all right. Second time was a lot better.
Sorry, is that the law exam?
Yeah.
So how many times did you take it?
I took it twice.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
You always fail at once.
And
my mom did.
Yeah. The first time I did well, but my score wasn't high enough to get where I wanted to, and then I'm like, okay, maybe I should actually.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was like, maybe I should study for real this time. And so because this time I was studied for a month and a half. But the same time, I had a very good study plan. But even just doing that, just challenging my brain and just being able to I I felt pushed in that preparation. And that's essentially what motivated me into wanting to go and study law. And I'm not set on any kind of particular. I mean, I say bankruptcy now. I feel like that's probably going to change. But one thing I do want to avoid a lot is being in the courtroom and going through the whole back and forth, whether whether you're on the prosecution or whether you're on the defense. I just think that type of law is very emotionally draining.
That's true.
Just based on this person's life, their livelihood, and you're either trying to put them away, trying to help them, get the best deal possible. I'd just rather deal just kind of straight up contracts, and
I'll say it's kind of interesting for you though. I would have pinpointed you as being the guy that was in the courtroom. You seem very talkative. You could sway 12 people pretty easily. I think.
Yeah, and I mean I've thought about that. I mean I really do enjoy public speaking and having a platform, but also I mean I don't really want that. I don't call it baggage, but I mean I'll say that responsibility.
No, it's very straining. I mean I don't need to get into specifics with my father, but there were plenty of cases that he came out when you could tell it was just fucking way on him.
Yeah. And so what kind of law do both your parents practice?
So my mother is more that what you were describing, that contract kind of. She's actually part owner of a law firm, which I don't even remember the name. To be honest, that's how good of a son I am. But my father's a judge, and he had been a prosecutor for many years. He was actually I'm not going to give away that position, but he had elected position that was involved in law for several years. And back in Northwest Iowa where we grew up, so it was always prosecution laws what he dealt with. So there were plenty of cases where it was like horrible rapes or murders, kids being murdered. I think he specifically worked with like the department where they were troubled youth, where they were in a bad environment at home and they'd be put foster system or whatever. I think he worked with that directly as well. And he actually, growing up, he actually had background with that because his parents were like, amongst having kids, they had like almost like a foster farm. So they'd have 12 kids living at them at the same time, including their own. They'd have just all these, kids that were, just in the system. So, I mean, I think that kind of, so he was kind of working with that too. So that's kind of what they've done, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. And I mean, so I always like to ask that question because, and I sure you feel like more pressure, like just during this time that's been going on in the country, with, just more focus on, advocating for equality, advocating for justice, and really feeling that pressure personally, just being a man of color, but also, and I mean, also, I'm sorry, but I mean, essentially, I almost feel bad for not wanting that responsibility.
I see what you're saying.
Essentially, just because, I mean, I think a lot of other lawyers just, they can just major what they want. Just, that's fine. But just this whole pressure, because we recently watched Just Mercy. Good movie. I don't know if you've seen it.
That was the one that they just put up on, right?
Yeah, Michael B. Jordan. And it's, it's an ongoing case about a falsely accused black man in the South, and he has a lawyer defending him. And this was actually, and it's fairly recent. I mean, it's in the early 90s, and so it's like, like my lifetime, this still going on, and so I do feel kind of like I'm abdicating that responsibility to somebody else, but then again, I'm just struggling with the fact that I don't think that's my responsibility to begin with, or it should be, and it's I mean, I'm really torn with it, just because it's something that I could get into, but I feel that I want to feel that I'm the one determining my own path, not any kind of outside forces pushing me in one direction or another.
Well, I will say you have a very, I kind of want to get into ask you about this because, again, maybe this is just me being a stereotyping, being an asshole, but I think you do kind of have a very interesting perspective on being a black man in America, considering where you grew up and having moved here. Would you say there's anything like similar or different in like how you perceive all that?
I'll say that I definitely see it through, so being an African man in this country, from Africa, I guess, so American history, I've just only been American for about 2 years now.
Oh wow.
No, it's 19. Yeah. I've not even been an American for a year yet. Sorry. So I mean, I've only been American for like 8-9 months ish. And so really understanding that a lot of American history, that's not my history per se. I mean, my history is much more tied with Europe than it is with the United States. But I mean, I do understand inequality, and I do understand how this country has ended up in this moment. And so my perspective is definitely that of somebody who can kind of take a step back, because going back to what we're talking about, with corruption, or this whole divide, political divide. I've seen a side of it from Kenya, where the government is really, really corrupt, where the division is not just protests, but I mean, it's a whole life and death thing. I mean,
violence.
Yeah. And I mean, you're seeing some of that now, but I mean, I don't think you can scale it up, or even the divide. I don't think that the whole tribalism thing.
I think we could get there, but I do see what you're saying. I don't think we're quite there yet.
And I mean, a lot of it is fueled, by who's currently in office, but also just different narratives. Because I mean, you can you'll find the extremists on either side, and exactly. I mean, my perspective to all of this is, people need to just think. Not of just themselves and what they believe in, but really question. And I think there's a lot of power in questioning, where your beliefs stem from. I'm probably, I mean, so just put it out there. I mean, I don't identify with either party, just because I think there's good ideas that can come from either side. But also there's a lot of bad ideas.
Yeah.
That come from either side. And I mean, I'll say I'm fairly liberal on everything. I'm pretty conservative when it comes to spending money, just because I'm just a student.
I would say I align. I think a lot of people Sorry, how old are you again?
I'm 27. Yeah.
27. Okay,
yeah.
So I'm 24, 25. So about the same age. I feel like there's a large people that are our age that have that view.
And the whole thing is, I mean, but what I don't like is, it has to be, all one thing or the other. I mean, there's
exactly.
nothing, there's nothing good that this person can do, and everything this person has done is bad. And so I mean,
or vice versa, that everything someone does is great.
And this person, they can't even tie their shoes properly. But when you have that, when you're so bifurcated between, everything, everything's either 0 or 1. There's no middle ground. That really erodes the whole social conversation that you're able to have, because immediately once this person opens their mouth, you're working to discredit them. And I always challenge a lot of people, just listen to people that you don't agree with.
Yes.
And I mean, I have a lot of podcasts and people just like, I cannot believe this person saying this. But I mean, I know that there's somebody listening to them like, yes, this person gets me.
You're right.
And so that really helps you understand both arguments, understand both perspectives, and I think it makes you just a more well-rounded person in general, being able to understand somebody else's viewpoints. Whether, I mean, on even the most controversial topics, whether talking about race, or whether you're talking about a gender identity, or anything that that falls into that spectrum. Immigration is a big thing, where I would say that the current administration's immigration policies are very close to what Kenya is doing with respect to the Somalians over there. And a lot of Kenyans just say, get them all out. We don't want them here. Send them back. And so understanding that just because it's happening here doesn't mean that it happens nowhere else in the world. I mean, there are countries that take 0 immigrants, that take 0 refugees. And so just really understanding that America still it's a young country, it's a growing country, but I still think it's a very, very it's a fantastic country, and I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to be here, because I have friends who I still talk to in Kenya, and they're just like, man, I really wish that I was in your position, and given the people that are protesting in the streets, I still think that it's and any country essentially has to deal with this history, but I mean, I think my perspective just definitely comes from seeing not just what's going on here, but also juxtaposing that to what's going on in Kenya, and just reading about what's going on in other countries gives you a more that we can kind of step back and not just be in the moment or see what's going on in your little pocket of the world, but being able to see things from just from a deeper perspective really makes you appreciate what you have, and puts you in a position to change what you don't have into what could be or what's possible.
Yeah, it's very important to be open-minded. Like you said, be willing to listen to other people and like assume maybe they have something they don't have. Yeah, and I think the bottom line with all this, with everything, if we're gonna get into what's happening right now, I think bottom line's education.
Yeah,
I don't think people are like properly knowing all the facts. I think it's educated, and I'm not gonna say anything about the movement that's going on right now, but I don't see a lot of critical thinking happening. I see a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to hear from people like you, who you're obviously a very intelligent, like open-minded person. You've had experiences that are different from a lot of people, and it's important. That's important. So
yeah, and yeah, going with your point, but also just perspective, right? Because just because I see this one way today, or I think this should happen, or I think this should happen tomorrow, doesn't mean that that's gonna be that's not subject to change, and every action has repercussions for people. But I really like your point where there's not a lot of critical thinking going on. I think there's a lot of it's a very emotional time,
very emotional,
and whether or not it's you're talking about protesting for justice or you're for justice and equality, or you want to go tear down a statue, there's not, just because you feel so strongly doesn't mean that everybody has to feel the way you feel.
Exactly.
So really believing in something doesn't make you right, it makes you passionate. There's a lot of people who are really I disagree with completely, but they're very passionate about it, and so or there's a lot of people, there was a lot of very, very, very passionate Nazis. Doesn't mean that they were right. When you step back and kind of question, why do I believe this thing, or whether you're on the left or the right, just really thinking more critically about where these beliefs stem from, and being able to listen. I think there's a lot of people who just want to push their agenda as far as possible, and at the expense of plowing through everybody who doesn't who doesn't agree with them. And that's something that I think I don't believe any political party, any politician has this mandate to be able to just overrule every single person.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, because I don't think people are, regardless of however you feel about this, like that's kind of what's at stake, isn't it? Or how I feel anyways, is like, if this emotionally charged thing keeps going, we could potentially end there.
Yeah.
Getting away from that though, how did COVID affect you guys? Or Molly says you guys were going a little crazy during that whole thing. Oh man,
gosh. I'm cooped up in a 1-bedroom apartment during lockdown.
Damn, yeah.
Oh man.
You guys are both very social.
Yeah. And so
how'd you work? So where were you working? How'd your work get affected?
Oh yeah. So I laugh because so essentially I was training for a position at Wells Fargo, working in the mortgage department where we handle a lot of the just the bankruptcies and foreclosures.
Sorry, Wells Fargo, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the evil empire.
Yeah. at least you can admit that, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. But the evil empire still needs employees.
They pay you, right?
They pay. Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to put on the clone suit and shoot the lasers at people. So I was training for it, and I work at the one in West Des Moines on Jordan Creek Parkway. Huge campus. There's like almost 10,000 people working there. And so halfway through our training, as cases kept rising, what essentially happened is the building started emptying out, and we couldn't continue our training because we were training. It was like 14 people in one room, which is like, oh god, COVID again. No, you can't do that anymore. And so everyone was essentially just like, literally the shit hit the fan, and so people being sent home to work from home, and so they're trying to figure out what they can do with us, because we're not even employees yet. We're still contractors. We're still under the managed resources, and so we have like half system access and half this shit. I'm just there like, I'm just counting down the days till I'm done. And then so what happened to my department? Essentially, we were like halfway through our training when everything shut down. We only knew how to do half the stuff. And so and then all the mortgages entered into forbearance, or a lot of the mortgages entered into forbearance. You can't do any bankruptcies. You can't do any foreclosures. But technically, I was still an essential employee, whatever the hell that means. Me being essential, essentially, me being essential was me going to work, and like there'll be like a couple things for me to do, and then I'm chilling. I have to be there for 8 hours per my contract. So I'm at home downloading movies and shows to watch at work for the 6 hours that I'm just chilling there. And then and so our building's like maybe at 10% capacity. So you have maybe like not even that, probably like.
What area of town is your building?
Huh?
What area of town was your building?
This in West Des Moines.
Okay.
Yeah, Jordan Creek Parkway.
Yeah.
Huge campus. And now it's down to like 500 people from 10,000.
Damn.
And like my floor, there's like 16 people in a place that sits like maybe 500, and so there's nobody in there. And so another thing that they did is they made all the food and snacks free.
Nice.
And so, so COVID. So for my work, it wasn't that bad. And I mean, we still get emails. One person or two people have a case every couple of weeks. It's like whatever. Like I don't really care.
Who cares at this point?
Because if somebody on my team gets it, then I still get paid to take those 2 weeks off. So it's like somebody.
Damn, really?
COVID. Yeah. And so personally, it's not been that bad. But I did take about a month off. Just when things were heating up back in where is it? I think it was in March. Yeah, it was in March, April, and no one knew what was going on. There was cases, fatalities. That's when New York was getting hit really hard. My sister lives in New York City.
Oh,
yeah,
fuck.
and so she was like locked down, like
And to be locked down in New York, was it an apartment she was locked in?
Yeah.
God, this is like closet.
Yeah,
they live in a closet.
Yeah, and so, but I mean, like everybody, I mean, it was just stressful. Like I'm a very social person, and we couldn't. My wife and I, we couldn't go anywhere. We were just watching movies, kind of working out, kind of not. I was like, you know what, screw it. We have COVID. COVID's going on. We're locked down. I'm like, all right, it's 10 in the morning. I'm drinking wine.
Who even cares anymore?
Don't
care.
So I mean, it was pretty hard. But I mean, as things started to relax a little bit, but it's hard when you both have different perspectives of it. I'm kind of just like, it's gonna be what it's gonna be. She's more of need to be as safe as possible. I'm just like, whatever. Forget it, we'll be fine.
You guys are young. Yeah.
But I mean, I definitely think it's especially when you're dealing with the pandemic. Really, what we're seeing right now is people who had a lot of like my mentality, like I'll be fine, but you can still spread it.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of come around to the fact that it's better to be safe, and it's better to just and I mean it's worth sacrificing some of your freedoms or some of the things that you like in order to slow this thing down, because a lot of countries have it under control. United States is going the complete opposite. The Europeans, when Italy was getting hammered and Spain was getting hammered, the UK, they shut everything down, and they did a good job of really still propping up a lot of their economies by paying and I don't jump too much back into politics, but by paying people 80% of their salary. I mean, you can live on that if you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
You're not going out. You're essentially just literally just paying the bills and buying food.
It's true.
Yeah. And so they were able to get by on that. And but the one thing I just really want people to understand is that, if you want to bring this thing to a close, you have to really take wearing masks, social distancing seriously, because otherwise you end up in a spot where kind of like where we are. Now we have a U-shaped curve. Where it went up, came back down, now we're going back up again. And I mean, and I don't see how we're able to bring that down without a more unified message. But yeah, COVID is. And even talking to my parents, I'll ask you the same question after this. But I mean, I asked them that they're like, this is the biggest thing, like one of the biggest events in their lifetimes as well.
Yeah,
and we're all going through it at the same time.
It's fucking nuts. there's definitely gonna be like a shift. It's like 2020 is gonna be like that year where it's like things, it's like 1776 or like whatever, Maybe not. I don't know if that was even positive, but 2020, that's good. Yeah, it's gonna be that paradigm shift year. It's fucking weird. All this crazy. Yeah, it's gonna be. Molly, you made a really good point the other day. She doesn't like to focus on her. But it's like, what she pointed out was that even though things may, physically go back to normal, things may socially still remain, like handshake. I shook your hand, but there's some people who would be like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
No, definitely. I mean, even just like, just thinking back to just like our, concerts or movies. Like, some movie theaters open. Who wants to go to the movie and sit there for 2 hours with some dude coughing in the back? Second somebody sneezes or coughs, and like,
right, people are gonna have a lot of PTSD from this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The cases of like crazy people like going like coughing on vegetables in grocery stores and shit.
It's ridiculous, but I mean, and I definitely agree with what Molly's saying. Just because it's traumatizing, and no one wants to go back to being locked down in their basement. But just like understanding, like things have to be different after this.
Well, and the thing that people really don't think about is even if this isn't as serious, this could branch into like other viruses that could because the jump from like bat to human isn't something that, from what I understand, I'm not a scientist, but from what I understand, this is like something that we haven't really seen before. Yeah. So the fact that this has happened, that virus has been able to mutate and happen, this could potentially lead to other more dangerous viruses occurring.
And so I'm not a scientist either, but I mean I know that it does happen about every 10-ish years you get something like this.
I see, like a big like kind of virus.
Because I don't know if you remember the SARS thing. That was like 2001, 2002. I remember that being in the U.S. and oh god, there was this poor Asian girl in our class, and everyone's calling her Miss SARS. Because and it's like fourth graders. So I mean,
so they're mean as fuck.
It's
almost worse than adults sometimes.
And so I mean, and so after that, like, and in 2009, you had like the whole swine flu thing, and so about like 10, 11 years later, you have COVID. COVID is just the one thing, just because it's spread so easily, that it's been able to just have such a huge impact, and the fact that that it's new. If this is like a regular flu, just be like, it's a regular flu. But the fact that it's new, you don't know what it's gonna do, you don't know where it's gonna go, and I mean, I just think that the fact that because I mean, you guys even remember like Zika virus was supposed to be the big thing. And I know it's like, fuck is Zika? Who cares about that shit? But I mean, it's been a huge stress test for the world, and I mean, I think some countries handled it so much better, and just kind of understanding, how. So I mean, if this thing was more deadly, and had a higher mortality rate, I mean, that's what worries me. Because I mean, you kind of have already defined group of people who are the most vulnerable. If you're older, you have pre-existing conditions. But I mean, if this thing was worse, like where would we be? I mean, if it's not that as deadly, and we're already doing this bad. So I mean, I think this really puts things into perspective, and just really focuses on like just because it makes you uncomfortable to do something doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. And I mean, I just think that just don't be selfish. Don't be a dick. Don't go there and cough on stuff or. But I mean, just coming back a full circle. I mean, it's gonna be a whole different world. I mean, just the way people view indoors and being with other people is gonna change dramatically. Especially being with like strangers. Like, who's gonna want to go to an office party in December? Like, who wants to go to holiday parties? Like, no, I don't know where the fuck you people have been. Like, I'm not gonna be in here for 3 hours with you. Like even bars and restaurants. Bars opened up in Florida. Now all the bars are shut down in Florida. And so just really I mean, it's gonna be different.
Like, are the repercussions of this gonna go into like Thanksgiving and shit? Do you think people are still going to be like that? Even if it's not relevant, are people going to be that cautious going into Thanksgiving and being like,
well, I mean, just
you got to eat 6 feet away?
Well, just look what the colleges are doing. I mean, a lot of them are trying to shut down before Thanksgiving break. I mean, Iowa State has their schedule. They're starting early August, and they're going to.
Oh wow, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So they're starting, I think, like second week of August, ish, and Can you look up Iowa State's schedule? Yeah. So I mean, but they're planning on being done by Thanksgiving break. and
that's gonna be really fucking weird. People's brains aren't gonna be put on straight. For that.
And I mean, they're gonna go straight through. No holidays, no.
Yeah, right. It's gonna be like a real job for them. They're gonna have to actually do it the whole way through.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. So they're gonna start Monday, August 17th.
Oh yeah.
And they're gonna wrap up by
November 21st.
Yeah.
Damn.
So
that's like what, 3 months?
Yeah.
3.5 months?
Yeah. So
that doesn't even sound like a semester. You know.
Yeah, that's like a quarter. That's like what I do.
Yeah.
Jeez. That's another big thing too. The value of colleges, I feel like it's just going to decrease drastically with all this. I mean, people are going to pay that much for online classes.
Oh, yeah, especially if you can learn as much online. People are going to be like, oh, well, why? Because, I mean, tuition is not the most expensive thing at Iowa State. It's the whole, it's the fees, books, and especially just living on campus. So it's all, and I mean, I used to tell my students this all the time. Tuition is that's a fixed cost. Everything else is variable. So where you live, what meal plan you have, like room and board is definitely the most expensive part of college, and then just paying for bullshit, frat parties and alcohol and just,
But yeah, that's a whole other factor that's gonna be taken away from the college experience. That's gonna change like entire societies.
But see, they're still gonna have fucking frat parties. They're just gonna be more low key.
Yeah, that's true.
And then they're gonna be a super spreading thing, and all the delts and the Kappa, Gammas, whatever the hell they are. They're all gonna get COVID and give it to everybody. So yeah, it's gonna come back to this one frat bro who went to see his parents and got sick. But yeah, I mean they were talking about if kids get COVID, quarantining them in their dorms. But like, what if you gotta take a shit? Like, you gotta take a shower.
What do you do? You have your own bathroom. You have to share.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because
it's like prison, man. It's a little toilet in the dorm.
It's gonna be wild. Like, it's gonna be different. It's gonna be.
Oh my god. No, one thing that I think I really take away from this whole COVID is like how poorly our president has responded to it. Oh my god. I remember when it was 100,000 deaths. He's like, I took a test and it looks like that I no longer have COVID. Look at me.
Yeah.
You didn't mention it's my birthday coming up. Oh my god, we could be better, man.
And oh god, like the two presidents who are not taking this seriously have the most cases. It's our president, and then the president of Brazil, who they're like 90% sure. Have you seen what this guy does? So there's pretty much like 90% of people are sure that he's already had COVID and recovered. And so this guy is going out into crowds, kissing babies, hugging people. While they're like burying like 1,000 people. Look at the picture.
Yeah, look at this shit. Oh my god.
Yeah. Like he's like, it's just a flu. Like people asked him, So yesterday we had the most the most deaths from COVID. He's like, what do you mean do about it? It's like, you're the fucking president. Like, come on.
Whatever, man. Just let him die.
He's fired essentially 2 Brazilian Anthony Fauci's, and I think the third one quit. But yeah, it's bad. It's this guy.
Damn.
He gives
zero fucks. Yeah. That's that's kind of the stereotype in a lot of those kind of presidents in South Africa, or South America, I should say.
Pull up a video of him.
Yeah, go to videos.
Because he just doesn't.
Try that. That's really quick. I don't think
because like this dude gives zero shits. It's crazy, and like in the background, they're burying like thousands of people.
Damn.
But. Anyways. Anyways, But yeah, I mean, I think this is gonna change, the whole landscape. But
Oh yeah, it's really weird. It's showed a lot of holes in our system.
yeah,
Yeah. Let's see what's going on here. Graphic content. Oh no. We can edit that out maybe. Well.
yeah. So
Oh shit.
yeah. So you have all these like mass graves.
Go to sound settings. Oh wait. There it is. We're good. So this is them. For those who are listening, maybe not watching, they're taking some coffins and burying them.
But so
Yeah.
I'd go to YouTube and look up
Yeah, like the president
just
acting people maybe.
takes questions from COVID.
Okay.
I mean about COVID, not from.
I want to mention, by the way, Molly, you were doing a great fucking job
Yeah.
for the first time ever doing this. I'm so glad I fucking I feel like I am Joe Rogan. I feel like I have Jamie here. It's really fucking nuts. All right.
Yeah, click on
Yeah. Try that third.
Yeah, no, hit the second one. Hit the second.
Second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a short.
Because BBC does a pretty good job covering him.
True.
YouTube.
That's gonna be an
YouTube's a bitch, man.
Run a real estate company to
Damn it, Teresa.
So ruthless, Greenfield signed the notices herself. Teresa Greenfield
Herself.
takes Iowa small businesses to the curb.
To the curb.
No meu caso particular, pelo meu histórico de atleta, caso fosse contaminado pelo vírus, não precisaria me preocupar. Nada sentiria ou seria, quando muito, acometido de uma gripezinha ou resfriadinho. Uma gripezinha.
Just a little flu or a little cold, he
That
said.
pretty much sums up the attitude of President Bolsonaro. He thinks that everybody is panicking unnecessarily.
Yeah.
The death toll is headed towards 3,000, with around 40,000
this is a
confirmed
while.
cases. But as the numbers rise at an ever-increasing pace, his attitude towards the virus remains pretty clear.
Devemos sim voltar à
I'm gonna
normalidade.
pee while this is playing. I'll be right back.
Algumas poucas autoridades estaduais e municipais devem abandonar o conceito de terra arrasada, a proibição de transportes, o fechamento de comércio e o confinamento em massa.
Leaders across the world are dealing with the economic fallout of the virus, but Jair Bolsonaro is president.
Porque o efeito colateral do combate ao vírus não pode ser, no meu ponto de vista, mais danoso que o próprio remédio.
But choosing the economy over health is a dangerous gamble. 13 million.
He's a lot more like Trump than I thought.
Oh yeah, he's
Oh.
very Trumpy.
And basic sanitation is but a dream. Yes, people need to work, but they're also concerned that they'll be the hardest hit when the virus spreads. Jair Bolsonaro is known.
Yeah, see, and this is like back when, like what you're saying, they only had 40,000 cases, and now they're at the point where they're getting like 40,000 cases a day.
Yeah, this was in April.
Yeah, yeah, he's still throwing rallies.
He's still acting this way.
Yeah, he's still having rallies. Like,
Oh my god.
Hundreds have held rallies calling for businesses to reopen. Some think the coronavirus threat is fake news.
yeah, he's very Trumpy.
Seems like it.
Oh my
Is he
God.
white too?
Well,
Kinda, real white Brazilian.
Ish.
Importance of social distancing. Mr. Mandetta made his view of the president pretty clear.
Ciência, disciplina, planejamento.
Yeah, former health minister because he got fired.
Yeah.
No, he got fired for telling the president the truth.
I don't like that.
It's facts and science. Get the hell out. What are you doing?
It's like in Jaws when the sharks are eating everyone. They're like, nah, fuck it. We're just gonna keep them open. Oh my god. All right, I think we've had enough of that. But BBC News
Yeah, he's pretty wild, dude.
seems like it. So I don't know. I guess it's not just in America, right?
No.
Stupidity.
I mean, two countries, the worst leaders have the most cases. It's not a coincidence.
Damn. That's really interesting. We've been going for quite a while. Holy shit, we're almost at 2 hours here. Damn. I do have one question before we kind of start wrapping this up. Kind of more of a maybe semi-romantic or talking about you were Molly's brother-in-law. How did you and your wife meet? Get into all that. Might as well end on a sentimental
We
note,
met
huh?
in a lovely physics class that I did not want to take. Taught by a great teacher. Her name was Miss Savala. She's fantastic. Molly will tell you more about her.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so I did not want to take this class. I'm like, I'm going to go study STEM. I should probably take a physics class. Took this class. Super easy. No idea what Kelly was at the time. And, we started talking. I had class every other day. We started talking a little bit. I think she had the volleyball game, so she was all dressed up nice. And I was like, oh, okay, nice. She's kind of cute. I might talk to her. But yeah, so, the class was super easy. I was doing well. But, I needed, an in because, we had talked a little bit. And so I was like, oh, well, I'm kind of struggling. Can you, if I had your number, it was kind of nice. So yeah, she gave me her number. We started, we started talking after that. And so I was in the student council, and my job was kind of help sell tickets to the homecoming dance. And I should just ask her to go with me. I was trying to get her to buy a ticket because at the time I didn't know if I liked her. So just kind of see, know how things were going. But yeah, and then asked her out after her birthday, and I'm going strong. Almost 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in December.
Damn.
Got married in 2018. Glad. Got married before COVID.
Yeah, right. A lot of people are getting married now. They're just doing the virtual weddings.
Yeah. Doing a ton of virtual weddings. So a lot of my sister's friends in New York. That's how they're doing it.
Oh, okay.
Just virtually, and
just still going forward.
Also, a lot of virtual divorces. So, yeah,
what is that's gone up suicide's gone up 1,000%, but divorce is somewhere in there.
Rates are high too. Yeah.
Sorry, look that one up again really quick. Okay. Divorce, yeah. But anyway, sorry, continue.
And so so went to Iowa State together. I was in the first year, while she was still in high school, and then went to Iowa State together. Graduated. Now we're teaching. We're adulting together, and now we have our first we're gonna move to a different state together. And, it's just it's wild. But one thing I don't know is how did you and Molly meet?
A fancy little app called Tinder.
Nice.
That's how we met.
If my mom watches this, I'm sorry.
What did you tell her?
Okay, so
tell. I'm curious. Tell the story that you tell her.
So it was my great grandma's birthday. It was Grandma Joyce's birthday.
Okay.
So we went up to Garner, and coming back, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to hang out?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I told Mom because I had Gunther still, so I had to bring him with me. Because I couldn't leave him alone. And Mom's like, "You didn't meet him on that Fuck Buddy Tinder site, did you?" That's her exact words. And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Where are you going?" And so we went to my house in Newton. And I was like, we're going to his parents' house. Wow. So Mom thinks I met him on a different website and went to his parents' house.
Nice. What other website is there? There's a Tinder.
Bumble.
There's Bumble.
I said
Christian Mingle.
CarversOnly.com.
What's that fucking show? The Act about the Joy Blanche chick, the chick that was faking disabled. Yeah, her and that creepy boyfriend. They met on Christian Mingle.
They did.
So in the show that. No. Oh God, it's fucked up. Definitely give that a try. What was that? Gypsy Rose, there we go. Yeah. God, that whole thing was fucked up. I remember I watched that show
fascinating.
It was a year ago probably. Oh my God, some weird shit.
Well, I got my best friend. He met his fiance on Tinder. So it's just dating's changed.
Keenan engaged?
No, not Keenan. Jake. Oh shit.
Well,
Sorry,
not,
Keenan.
not to make it weird and awkward, but like me and my ex-wife, we met in like that, like, you know, enchantic like, you know, story like way where it's like, you know, the certain moment happens, et cetera, et cetera. So ever since then, I've kind of just been like, you know, whatever. You know, how do people meet each other these days? Like at a bar or online, you
In
know?
high school or college, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, so fuck, we just use technology to our advantage, I think.
There you go.
But no, I mean, I totally get it. I used to have that, like, I used to always think that too, like, oh, you guys met on Tinder, oh,
Well, I mean,
you guys are gonna do well.
but now it's like more than half like the new relationships are starting online.
Exactly. Yeah, that I think I've heard that statistic. It's like over half.
Yeah.
Over half relationships start on Tinder,
So.
at least. Well, fuck. We are like approaching the 2-hour mark. This has been a fucking great episode. I'm so glad I was able to have you on.
Of course, man.
And
Anytime.
yeah. So when are you guys moving?
We are leaving on July 24th.
Ooh,
so.
might not be able to get you on again before you leave, but it's been great. I want. That was another thing. I wanted to make sure to get you on before you guys left. Where are you guys moving to? Michigan? What's going on with that?
Michigan. We're moving to Illinois.
Oh, Illinois. That's right. Fuck.
But yeah, I think it's in Lake Michigan or something. But I don't know. But yeah, so we're moving to DeKalb, Illinois. It's about 60 miles west of Chicago. So yeah, it's kind of like a small college town. It reminds me a lot of Ames.
Okay.
So.
That sucks.
And you're gonna be a lawyer up there, or what's going on?
So the plan is to take the Iowa bar and come back to Iowa.
Oh.
Don't really want to live in Illinois, but we'll see. I mean, everything is.
Your wife would kill you if you lived in Illinois.
Yeah, so everything is subject to change. But I mean, I like Iowa. I know Iowa. But I mean, that's the plan for now, and we'll kind of just see what happens. But yeah, I definitely appreciate you having me on the show. I mean, I think we had a great discussion. Covered.
Fuck yeah, this has been awesome, man. I'm always looking for individuals who are, you know, willing to have a conversation. And
Yeah.
you seem like a very open-minded, you know,
Oh, yeah.
talkative individual, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, of
so,
course, man. Anytime.
all right, well, we're gonna wrap it up here. Fuck, my next guest that we're having on is gonna be Jandro Bands. He's a local hip hop artist. I guess I never asked you. Do you like hip hop? Are you a
Of course
big?
I like hip hop, man.
Hell yeah. What was it? Molly told me you were calling me J. Cole.
Oh,
I thought
yeah,
that was
yeah,
the
yeah.
shit. I was like, fuck yes. This is like my new favorite guy. Fuck yeah. Call me J. Cole. I love that. So he's going to be on in like 3 days. Besides that, it's been a great fucking time having you on, man. Like I said, Molly, great fucking job. Holding on the fort, pulling up this information. The true Jamie and my Joe Rogan. I fucking love it. So yeah. Thank you guys both. Thanks everybody for listening. Y'all have a good night. Peace out.